We just want to bring you more on our breaking news. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has just announced that in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire. He has just tweeted this only a few minutes ago. We're going to go to our chief US correspondent, Alan Fisher, now. He joins us from Washington, D.C., from the White House. Alan, this is a significant moment, isn't it? Especially coming not long after Donald Trump said he was optimistic that talks could potentially resume, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, as we've said in the last couple of days, these things tend to be staged. It's you do this, then we do that. If this happens, then that happens. And that could well be what we're seeing, a sequencing of things moving towards more significant talks with Iran. One of Iran's demands was, of course, that there was a ceasefire in Lebanon. The United States may well have said, and we've nothing to back this up, but certainly if you read the tea leaves, it suggests, look, if we get the ceasefire in Lebanon, then we open up the Strait of Hormuz. The big question mark over all of this, of course, is what America does next, because they have the blockade of Iranian ports. They've said that nothing is coming in or coming out. They've interdicted a number of vessels that have already made that journey. They have stopped a couple of oil tankers that were coming out of Iran in the last 24 hours. So what do they do next? Is this part of the sequencing, or does that stay in place because they believe that's an important pressure point for Iran and also for those who support Iran or do business with Iran, the likes of China, to get them to a negotiating table and then to deliver on a peace deal? Now, I don't think there's any issue with getting Iran to the negotiating table. It's what's actually agreed when they get there and whether or not they are actually open to some of the US demands. But clearly the US has been open to what Iran has been saying, because they have said, look, we want a ceasefire in Lebanon as part of this. That has been delivered by and large. But then the next step obviously was you open up the Strait of Hormuz. We might be reading too much into this, but it tends to be in these things sequenced events, and certainly that's the pattern that we're seeing here.
OK, Alan, obviously, like you say, a sequence of events. We know that Islamabad in Pakistan, they've been gearing up for a second round of potential talks. A lot goes on behind the scenes, obviously. Is there any indication from the White House that they might be getting ready to re-engage with Iran in negotiations?
Well, certainly not in the coming days. I mean, everything that we're seeing in public does not suggest that is happening. By this time last week, J.D. Vance was already on his way to Islamabad. Today, he's not. Marco Rubio could have been on his way to Islamabad. Today, he's not. Those things aren't happening, but they can happen very quickly. And as you say, as we've seen from the events of the last 24 hours, things can happen very quickly. There was the meeting on Tuesday at ambassadorial level between Lebanon and Israel. There was talks that there might be a chat between the leaders on Thursday. Donald Trump fueled that himself by sending out a Truth Social post. But behind the scenes, things were happening. There was the conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu. There was the conversation with Joseph Aoun, the Lebanese president. And while all of that was going on, the State Department was working behind the scenes to draw up a memorandum of understanding. Essentially, this is the template for how a ceasefire in Lebanon would work for both the Israelis and the Lebanese. So all of that could be going on behind the scenes, but certainly public-facing, we're not seeing anything that suggests that J.D. Vance is about to leap on Air Force 2, the vice presidential jet, and head to Islamabad. The other thing to remember, of course, is that Donald Trump said yesterday that if he thought there was going to be a deal, he himself would go to Islamabad. He's currently in the west of the country, here in the United States. He was in Nevada on Thursday, and he's going to be in Arizona on Friday. He's not making preparations to head to Pakistan anytime soon.
OK, thanks so much, Alan. Stay with us. Just want to bring that breaking news for people who are just joining us. This is coming from the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He's just commented on the ceasefire in Lebanon, saying that as a result, the Strait of Hormuz is now completely open. In a social media post, he said, in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire on the coordinated route as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm going to bring in Tohid Asadi now. He joins us from Tehran. And Tohid, what else has Araghchi had to say?
Actually, this is a message that he posts on his X account that we heard, and obviously this is very much important. He's talking about the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and he's talking about opening of it to commercial vessels, while previously we had it from different Iranian officials that Strait of Hormuz is going to be open for everyone but closed to our adversaries. The reality on the ground was that the traffic of the transit across the Strait of Hormuz over the past weeks was, I can say, unprecedentedly low compared to the normal time. And practically speaking, we saw a very limited number of ships and vessels going through the trajectory of this important and this geostrategically significant choke point. And we know that, speaking of that, we earlier heard from the Iranian side that they are looking for a new regime of management across the Strait of Hormuz, a sort of selective approach by the Iranians. They said that it's going to be open for everyone but not our adversaries. And right now, this is a new statement, very much important. And obviously added to that is another important statement that we actually have been hearing from time to time from Iranians about the plans to impose actually charges and transit fees for the ships and vessels going through the trajectory of this choke point. And we know that, speaking of the role of this strait when it comes to the energy market, when it comes to the security context across the region, Iran is trying, in a sense, to use it as a leverage, as a bargaining chip when it comes to negotiations down the road. And speaking of that, it is obviously an important development, because following the failure of the previous round of talks, we heard from the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that most issues are settled down. However, there are several sticking points, and reportedly Strait of Hormuz was one of them. Iran said that it is conditioned upon a sort of comprehensive ceasefire across the region, particularly including the Lebanese front. And right now, following the developments that we hear about from the Lebanese front, it's a sort of response, strategically speaking, from Tehran that could or could not pave the way for a further facilitated approach when it comes to negotiations. We know that there are other sticking points. It goes without saying, a long list, which includes basically the war reparation, the security assurances Iran is looking for, the frozen assets, the sanction relief, Iran's regional relations, and the list goes on. And if we just juxtapose the 10-point proposal by the Iranians and the 15-point proposal by the Americans, we can rest assured that there are other points of contention when it comes to any potential rapprochement. However, we have to keep in mind that this is certainly a very important positive step forward when it comes to a possibility of negotiated settlement between Tehran and Washington. Whether or not at the end of the day there is going to be a next round of talks is a very important question. There is no official confirmation in that regard from Tehran. However, we know that diplomatic engagement goes on, as we've got it from Foreign Minister Araghchi during his phone calls with many counterparts beyond the region and across the region. And also Tehran says that it continues its contacts with Islamabad, a sort of mediated communication with the United States. That's something that they call. And this could pave the way for a next round of talks in Islamabad or elsewhere. Tehran previously said that Islamabad is their priority for such a talks to be held. But still, we have to keep in mind, all in all, that we're dealing with a very fragile, very brittle situation in that regard. Whether the two sides can at the end of the day translate this opportunity, seize this opportunity to come up with a diplomatic solution remains to be seen. While on the other hand, we have to keep in mind that also today we've got a statement from IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, saying that the army of the country, the IRGC, are already with their fingers on trigger for another round of confrontation in case negotiations fail.
Okay, thanks so much, Tohid, for that. We will no doubt come back to you with more developments in Tehran.